Namaste. I'm your host Amit Ananja, and today's monologue is gonna be all about the recent happenings in the modern world, which is, the taking over of Afghanistan by Talibanis and the renaming of Afghanistan as the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Let's begin. To start with, let's answer the very basic question of what is the actual meaning of the word Taliban. So the word Taliban is actually derived from the Arabic root word Talib, which means a student. Taliban is actually a Pashtun word which means student of Islam or a student from madrasa. Having answered the first question, let's move on to the second question, which says, what is Afghanistan's history of power shift? That is, how has Afghanistan been ruled in the recent times? So this particular question can be answered by dividing the power regimes in Afghanistan in three different phases, one of which was monarchy, the second one was militia takeover, which is a Taliban takeover, and the third one is the democratic government. So till 1989, Afghanistan was run over by monarch kings. There were several political killings, and one after the another kings were killed and then taken over by another king. In 1989, Soviet Union, they withdrew their troops from Afghanistan, following which Taliban took control of the entire country and they ruled till 2000. So you see, there was monarchy till 1989 or 1990, following which Taliban took control over the entire country and they ruled till 2000. In the year of 2000, they destroyed Buddha statue in the mountains. It was a World Heritage Site and they destroyed it. The video is still there on YouTube. You can watch it if you want. And following 2000, in 2001, USA intervened. They got Taliban out of power and established a democratic government in Afghanistan, and they established their army bases there as well. And they took control of the country and they ensure that a democratic government is prevailing over there. Until just last week, when USA started withdrawing its troop, and it came to an extent where there were no more troops to ensure that the government is stable enough, and Taliban again took control of the entire country. Now coming to the question of what does Taliban actually want? Why is it trying to take over the entire country of Afghanistan all over again? And what is it that it's planning to do? So to answer this question, the name of Taliban itself gives it out. Name Taliban is the student of Islam and the student of madrasa. They actually want to ensure that Sharia is implemented in Afghanistan. They want to ensure that a caliphate is established. They want to ensure that Afghanistan remains a Darul Islam, and they want to ensure that Gajbai Hind is taking place. Now I'll explain every single one of them. So what is Sharia? Sharia is an Islamic law which is the basic law by which all the Muslims are governed. It is the duty of every single Muslim to ensure that Sharia is the one which is governing the Muslim majority area. Not any other form of governance is required for the Muslims to be governed by. If you go by surveys, even on YouTube, you can watch videos wherein Muslims residing in developed nations of this world are saying that we want to be governed by Sharia law rather than the constitution of this particular country. Imagine that. And it's not just a minor amount of Muslims saying it, it's the majority of them. Now, to give an example of what Sharia is, let me quote a few things from the Sharia law. Sharia law would actually ensure that the non-Muslims pay a tax for security of theirs, which is called jizya. Otherwise, they got an option to convert to Islam or to die. Now, the second Sharia law would come out as, women getting lashes in public for committing some public display of emotions. The third would go like death by stoning. So what happens in this is, if a woman is accused of adultery, she is proven to have committed adultery in a court, Sharia court, then she would have to be taken over to a place where the four streets meet, and she would be half in the mud, and then the entire community of people would throw stones, pelt stones at her until the time she dies. There's a movie on this called The Stoning of Soraya, which you all can watch. It happened in 2012 in the modern world, and this was witnessed by a French journalist. He wrote a novel after that, which was later converted to a movie, a documentary. So this is what Sharia law is, and Taliban exactly wants to establish Sharia law. Caliphate is something which is ensuring that Sharia law is enacted on every single landmass which is there, and the entire world is governed by Sharia law. That is called Islamic Caliphate. ISIS also set out for establishing Caliphate, but it failed miserably anyways. Now following is Darul Harb and Darul Islam. So Darul Harb is a landmass where Muslims are in minority and they are not really governed by Sharia law, and there is some other form of governance going over there. And it is the duty of every single Muslim to ensure that Darul Harb is converted to Darul Islam, which is a landmass where Muslims are in majority and it is governed by Sharia law. The third is Ghazwa Hind, which is not really in Quran or any other Muslim text but Hadith, and it prophesizes that if Muslims have control over Bharat, which is Hind, and they have Sharia law enacted over all of Bharat, then they will have Sharia law enacted over all of the world. And that is why they are aiming for Bharat at the first place, because the prophecy says that if Bharat is under Sharia law, the entire world will govern under Sharia law. Having answered the question of what does Taliban want, we now want to answer the question of why this hue and cry over Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, and isn't it hypocritical? The premise of the question is the fact that I stated previously. Most of the Muslims, if you ask them, will agree to the fact that they want to live in a place where there is Sharia enforced. And Sharia basically enforces everything that the Taliban wants to enforce in Afghanistan. So why this hue and cry? I don't see a problem. Women, as far as women are concerned and their rights are concerned, I don't see Taliban suppressing it, because Taliban is basically implementing what is there in Quran. If you read the verse from the second chapter of Quran, which is out there on your screen right now, you can see that women are considered to be a tilth for men, and they can use them in whichever way and whatever way they want to and whenever they want to. This is what Quran dictates for women. This is exactly what Taliban is going to ensure. So before criticizing Taliban, it would be good if you criticize Quran for what they are trying to implement. Now, having discussed about Muslim women, take a look about what Quran has to say for non-Muslim women. Non-Muslim polytheistic women are considered to be worse than sex slaves. Not just that, non-Muslim polytheistic men are considered to be worse than slaves. Polytheists in general are considered to be worst of the creatures. So every single Hindu, every single Persian, every single Zoroastrian who is an idol worshipper is considered to be, or who is a polytheist is considered to be the worst of all the creatures. This is what Quran dictates. This is exactly what Taliban is implementing. They already have destroyed the Buddha statue which was engraved in the mountains, and they are destroying every other temples in Pakistan and Afghanistan, everywhere, every single day. I don't see a problem with Taliban. I see a problem with the ideology that they are carrying forward, and that's the ideology of Islam and Quran. Sometimes back, if you remember, you would see people arguing that hijab is not, or burqa is not the sign of women misogynism or whatever. It is actually a sign of women empowerment and it's a matter of choice. Well, if it's a matter of choice, why was a woman in the international games not allowed to participate without wearing burqa? And she was none other than an Indian woman who did not participate. Therefore, it was a compulsion. You would have seen Nike making advertisements on how burqa is women empowerment thing. And now these people are crying over women will be forced to wear burqa. I don't see a point in this. If at all burqa is empowering, how is there suppression? The second hypocrisy that I want to talk about is, rather than criticizing the basis of what Taliban is trying to implement, they are criticizing Taliban. It's just like saying, triple talaq and halala is not there in Quran. It's the Mullah Islam which is doing it, which is absolutely bullshit. If you read these verses from the second chapter of Quran, you would see that triple talaq and halala are mentioned in Quran itself. The verse says, you have to wait for 3 months prior to giving the third talaq. And then once you are done giving the third talaq, you need, if at all you need to remarry the same girl, she has to marry someone else prior to marrying you. That's what halala precisely is. And it's actually mentioned in Quran. It's not some mullah practicing it whimsically. The next question for now will be, am I an Islamophobe? Well, I must look like one, for sure. But bear with me for some more time and you'll have the answer. So tell me one thing. Weren't all of us taught about Sati Pratha and caste discrimination being bad practice and evil practice in Sanatan Dharma back in the days when we were kids? Did we feel offended? Were the ones teaching us Hindu phobes? Was the syllabus Hindu phobe? Was the designer of the curriculum Hindu phobe? And the answer to all of us is no. It was a social evil which was practiced and we were taught, discussed, and that is why it got eradicated. Well, to state the fact, Sati Pratha is not actually a religious practice which is mentioned in the religious scriptures. To inform you on this particular matter, let me show you the Yazidi girls in these videos that you are seeing. They are the ones who are burning themselves just to prevent themselves from getting raped by the ISIS fighters. These girls were taken in as sex slaves, raped, gang raped, then sold out. Their families and brothers and whatnot are still searching out for many of these girls who are still missing. The same condition prevailed when Islamic rulers invaded our country and they ran a mammoth army of onslaughters and butchers against our territories. After losing, the women of those soldiers would commit sati rather than becoming a sex slave for the desert called Islamist jihadis. That was done out of dignity, not out of some wish and fantasy. About caste discrimination, if you go about reading Megasthenes, Marco Polo, Heinz and many other travelers who traveled Bharat back in the days when Islamic invaders were not in the country, you can see that there was no version of caste discrimination present. Rather, it was the other way around, opposite of it. Most of the Gurukuls would have more number of Shudras and Vaishyas, reading and training in them, rather than the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas. And this is documented in Megasthenes. You should go and watch out this playlist of Neeraj Attri where he mentions, where he quotes from the written documents and accounts of Megasthenes and Marco Polo and Heinz. These videos are great. So my point was, if the teaching of Sati Pratha and caste discrimination, even if they were not present and they were half told lies without giving the context of what was happening, was not Hindu-phobic, why is discussing something which is out there in the open, clearly portrayed with data as a fact, being Islamophobe? A half-truth is a lie in totality. Even I have got Muslim friends and I discuss these issues and topics very frankly and frequently with them, and many of them have become atheist and whatnot. See, I don't have a problem with atheist, I don't have a problem with anyone. I have my own way of doing things, I have my own way of thinking about myself and carrying myself forward, and everyone is free to have their own way. I don't have any problem with anyone, but the problem starts when people start taking you to be a problem. If you are not able to speak out on these lethal issues with your friends, you are the one who is an Islamophobe because you are fearing Islam. Otherwise, you would have spoken about it. And trust me when I say this, you are, justifiably so, because I can understand, seeing the recent events about, Samuel Paty in France getting murdered, prior to that Charlie Hebdo, and then in Bharat many cases like Nikita Tomar, Ankit Sharma, Rinku Sharma, Pankaj Tiwari, and a recent attack on Narasimhanand. All of these is based out of evidence, shows that one must be Islamophobe, otherwise one may lose his or her life. So fair enough, I give you that, be an Islamophobe. I choose not to be. The issue now emerging out of this Afghanistan crisis is the fact that should Bharat accept refugees? And the answer to this particular question should be a direct and clear no. What should be the basis of a no? Well, to start with, looking at the data about what has happened in the recent history to the world, we should not be taking any more Muslim refugees. Because if you look at Lebanon, if you look at Egypt, and if you look at Syria, just in the past 100 years, these three Christian countries have converted into an Islamic nation. And the responsible factor was the intake of Muslim refugees. I won't go any further. You can check out a detailed video on how the refugees incoming influx had established Muslim dominance in these three countries, resulting ultimately in changing of the entire regime itself and the country becoming Islamic. Not just that, if you look at the modern European nations now, Sweden, France, Germany, Poland, all of these are facing modern crisis and a huge crisis in law and order because of the influx of Muslim immigrants. Poland has straight away denied any single Muslim immigrant to take in its territory. Following the Afghanistan crisis, Australia and UK have directly said no to any further influx of Muslim refugees from Afghanistan. And as far as Bharat is concerned, you would have seen that the law and order issues broke out heavily when Rohingyas had their influx in Bharat back in the days. And even now, if you look at the employment rate in Bharat, the sinking GDP, it's not really a good idea to take in more and more people into our country, especially not the ones who have these ideologies. I don't know whether you still want to give it a chance. I leave it for you to decide. This was your host Amit Anand Jha. Meet you in the next one. Till then, namaskar, dhanyawad.